Elara lived in a town washed perpetually in soft grays, nestled between whispering mountains and a sea that sighed rather than roared while other children chased rainbows or collected seashells. Elara found magic in the overlooked corners. Her fascination was shadows, not the frightening ones under beds, but the gentle, shifting companions that danced along walls, stretched across cobblestones at dusk, and pooled beneath ancient oak trees. She saw stories in their shapes, a bird taking flight here, a knight's helmet there, a sleeping dragon curled over there. Her room wasn't filled with toys, but with carefully curated glass jars. Each jar held a captured shadow. The long, thin one from the lamppost on Maple Street, the dappled one from the willow tree by the pond, the intricate lace-like one cast by her grandmother's doily in the afternoon sun. They shimmered with a soft, internal darkness, swirling gently when she tilted the jars, whispering silent tales only she seemed to understand. One crisp autumn afternoon, while exploring the forgotten alley behind the old clockmaker's shop, Elara saw a shadow unlike any other. It clung to a crumbling brick wall, shaped vaguely like a small, hunched creature, but pulsing with a deep, velvety darkness that seemed almost alive as she approached. It didn't flee like others sometimes did. It seemed to lean towards her, radiating a profound sense of loneliness that echoed her own quiet heart. Gently, reverently, Elara lifted her newest jar. This shadow flowed into the glass like liquid night, cool and dense once captured. It didn't swirl lazily. It pressed against the inside of the jar with a quiet intensity, a faint, almost imperceptible thrum vibrating through the glass. Holding it felt like cradling a secret too heavy for one person to bear. Yet Elara felt an immediate, inexplicable bond with this strange, beautiful darkness. For days, the jar sat on her windowsill, the deep shadow within seeming to drink the moonlight. Elara spent hours simply watching it, feeling its silent hum resonate within her chest. It became her most treasured companion, a presence that filled the quiet spaces of her room with a comforting, melancholic energy. She whispered her own small sorrows to it. The friend who moved away, the loneliness of rainy afternoons, the fear of the vast, starry sky. The shadow seemed to listen, its darkness deepening momentarily, absorbing her words. Then, one morning, she woke to find the jar horrifyingly empty. Only clear glass remained, reflecting the pale dawn light. A cold emptiness flooded her room, sharper and more painful than any loneliness she'd known before. Her special shadow was gone, leaving behind a void that ached. A fierce determination replaced Elara's despair. Clutching the empty jar, she slipped out into the waking town. She retraced her steps to the alley, but the wall was bare. She searched under bridges where shadows gathered thickly, peered into the dim interiors of shops, and scanned the shifting patterns beneath the market stalls. She asked the baker, busy kneading dough, if he'd seen a particularly dark shadow. She inquired of the fishmonger, surrounded by glistening scales, if a lost shadow had passed by. They only smiled kindly, shaking their heads, mistaking her quest for childish fancy. The town bustled with light and life, oblivious to the profound loss Elara carried in her small hands, and her even smaller heart. The familiar shadows she passed seemed pale and insubstantial now, mere echoes of the profound darkness she sought. Exhausted and near tears, Elara found herself at the edge of town, where the cobblestones gave way to a winding path leading towards the foothills. An old woman, known simply as Weaver Agnes for the intricate tapestries she created, sat on her porch, her gnarled fingers still. Agnes's eyes, deep and knowing like dark pools, settled on Elara's tear-streaked face and the empty jar she clutched. Lost something precious, child? Agnes asked, her voice soft as rustling leaves. Elara poured out her story. The unique shadow, its loss, her fruitless search. Agnes listened intently, then gestured towards the jar. Some shadows, she murmured, aren't meant to be collected. Some are born from a sorrow so deep, they become seekers themselves, not of light, but of the place where sorrow can finally rest. Agnes's words resonated deep within Elara. She remembered the profound loneliness radiating from the shadow, the way it seemed to lean towards her own quiet sadness. It wasn't trapped, It had connected a new understanding dawned clutching. The jar. Elara didn't return to the alley or the town center instead. Guided by a sudden, quiet certainty blooming in her chest, she walked towards the ancient graveyard on the hill overlooking the sea. It was a place of peace, bathed in the golden light of sunset, where shadows grew long and soft among weathered headstones draped in moss. She walked past the markers, her steps silent on the damp grass, until she reached a secluded corner beneath a weeping willow. There, bathed in the fading light, lay a simple, unadorned stone, its inscription worn almost smooth by time and weather. Elara knelt before the stone, the cool earth seeping through her dress. She placed the empty jar gently on the grass beside it, closing her eyes. She didn't think of capturing, but of releasing. She poured out her own feelings of loneliness, her quiet understanding of sadness, her wish for peace, not just for herself, but for the sorrow that shadow had carried as the last rays of sun dipped below the horizon. A profound stillness settled over the grave. Then, slowly, tenderly, the deep, velvety shadow began to reappear. It didn't form on the ground or the stone, but around the stone itself, like a soft, dark embrace. It deepened, becoming richer and more peaceful than Elara had ever seen it in the jar. It pulsed once, gently, a silent sigh of profound relief, and settled, merging seamlessly with the twilight shade of the willow and the quiet earth that had found its home. Elara sat back on her heels, tears silently tracing warm paths down her cheeks, but they weren't tears of sadness anymore. They were tears of awe, of understanding, of a connection deeper than possession. She felt a warmth spread through her, a gentle light kindled not by banishing darkness, but by acknowledging its place. The deep loneliness she'd often carried felt lighter, shared, transformed. She picked up the empty jar, now just glass again, but holding a new kind of treasure, the memory of a profound kindness. Walking back down the hill towards the twinkling lights of her town, Elara didn't stop collecting shadows, but now she sought only the lightest, most playful ones. The flicker of a candle flame on the wall, the silly shape her hand made in lamplight, and sometimes, on clear nights when the moon was full, she would light a single candle by her window, its small, warm glow reaching out into the darkness, a quiet tribute to the shadows that held deep stories, and the light that could only be found by understanding them. She knew deep in her heart that a particularly deep, peaceful shadow watched over her from the hill, finally at rest.